Hi everybody, I'm glad to see such a huge group and I'm really excited to present to you today. So does anybody know what I'm going to be presenting about? Would anybody like to guess?
Blind fingers?
That's one thing I'm going to talk a little about. That's a very, very good idea. What's another idea? What's another thing you think I'll talk about? Books? Very good. Today I'm going to be talking about inspirations for writing. And this is something that I think is really important. So raise your hand if you like to write. I'm seeing a lot of raised hands. That's great. So it looks like we already have some very motivated writers here. Now you might be wondering, why is a 12-year-old giving us a presentation about writing? Well, as some of you may know, when I was 7, I published my first book, Blind Fingers, Master the Tools of Learning Through the Joy of Writing. And more recently, I published a second book called Dancing Fingers. And this is a book of poetry that I co-authored with my older sister. So writing is something that I've been doing for a long time and really enjoying. Now, I've been reading for a long time as well, and that's where I get a lot of my inspiration for writing. So it seems like a lot of you like to write, and I want to ask you, why do you write? What do you like about writing? I'm sorry?
Write about whatever I want.
So you can write about whatever you want. Very good. That's a great reason to write because it gives you power. So in the real life, maybe your parents tell you to take out the garbage and do chores, but in writing, you can tell your parents to take out the garbage and do chores, which is pretty amazing, I think. So what is one more thing you like about writing? That it's very fun to read, what?
Create.
Oh, to create. Yes, it's very fun to create, definitely. In writing, in reading you go to all kinds of different places, you travel to different corners of the globes and even different worlds, and so in writing you can create them, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to be talking about a few ways that you can get ideas for what to write about. Now raise your hand if you've ever been stuck on getting ideas before. I see a lot of raised hands. Probably all of us have been stuck on getting ideas for writing once or twice, maybe a little more. So today we're going to see some of the ways that we can get ideas for writing. Number one is to observe. Raise your hand and tell me, what does observe mean?
Look at it carefully and make sure there are no misspelled words.
That's one way you could observe. Observing does mean to look carefully. It wouldn't just have to be for misspelled words though. It could be all around you. So when we look around and notice the things going on, we're observing. It means to see or notice something, especially while watching carefully. So what is something that you have observed today, and how could that inspire a story?
I observed my breakfast.
You observed your breakfast. Very good. So what did you eat for breakfast today?
Waffles.
You ate waffles. Oh, lucky you. And how could you turn that into a story?
Mix it up a little bit.
Well, one way, maybe, if you had waffles for breakfast, just by looking at those waffles, maybe you could get an idea to write a story about a fierce competition between two rival waffle cooks in the same town. Maybe it would be in Belgium, like Belgian waffles or something. Actually, and you know what? That was inspired a little bit by something I saw on the Food Channel. That was a competition between waffle cooks. But you could write a story based on looking at that waffle and getting an idea, or maybe something you saw on TV. So that would be a great way of being able to observe not just food or objects, but also people. So look at the person sitting next to you, and what does that person look like? What do you observe about that person? And don't go like that in their face, but just observe carefully and raise your hand and tell me one detail about them.
Nice and loud. Oh.
Quiet.
Anybody want to tell me what you know about the person sitting next to you?
That she likes to draw.
That she likes to draw. Very good. So you might know the person sitting next to you likes to draw. Great. Now, how could you get an idea for maybe a character in a story from the person sitting next to you?
A boy who likes dirt bikes and he buys a real one and drives it everywhere in the world.
That is a very good story idea. So maybe if the person sitting next to you likes dirt bikes, you could create a character who loves dirt bikes so much, buys a dirt bike, and rides all around the world on it. That sounds like a great idea for a story. So it would be a kind of around-the-world adventure on a dirt bike. I'm not sure how you would manage to get across the ocean, but that I'm sure that you could bring a dirt bike on a boat too. So observing is something that can really give you great ideas for stories. Observing can help us get ideas from simple things we've noticed, and so thank you very much for telling me about some of the things that you observed today. Now here's another great way you can get ideas. Ask questions. So who has heard the saying, curiosity killed the cat? Raise your hand if you've heard that saying. Yes, well, I think that this saying doesn't quite apply to us because after all, we're not cats, right? So it's okay to ask questions. In fact, it's great. When you ask questions, you're learning new things and getting ideas. So there's one type of question that I really like to ask when it comes to thinking of ideas for stories, and that's a what-if question. So if you think, maybe you've heard a what-if question before, like, what if dinosaurs came back to life? Or what if a volcano erupted in my town? And it's fun to think about the answers to some of these questions, because then you have great ideas for stories. So raise your hand to tell me your own what-if question.
What if a leprechaun came by you and he asked you where your gold was?
What if a leprechaun came by you and asked you where your gold was? That would be, I honestly think that would be a little scary. What if a leprechaun came by you and asked where your gold was? Okay, so that would be one what if question, very nice. Who else would like to come with a what if question?
What if the alpacas got loose?
What if the alpacas got loose? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Great.
I thought it was a cat.
I believe
it's not cat.
I believe it's with an L, but I could be wrong. Now, what is another what if question? Let's get one more.
What would happen if a frog bit you?
What would happen if a frog bit you? That's very interesting.
I said ate you.
Oh, ate you. Sorry. Now that is even the more exciting. So if some giant frog popped you in its mouth, and now I don't know that frogs have that much of teeth, so who knows, maybe you would just get swallowed whole, and you would end up in some slimy frog stomach, which is not a very good thought, but it might be a great idea for a story, right? So, if you could really write a story, you could call it something like 365 days in a frog's stomach, because that sounds kind of cool. Like, I don't know if any of you have heard of that story, like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It would sound kind of like that, 365 days in a frog's stomach. And you would eat all the stuff the frog ate, and I don't think frogs eat that great of stuff either, so. Alright, so here are some great what if questions. What if a leprechaun came by you and asked you where your gold was? What if alpacas got loose? What would happen if a frog ate you? And I noticed the last two both involve animals, so that's pretty interesting. And now you don't want to just stop at asking the question. You can actually go ahead and answer it by writing stories. So what if a leprechaun came by you and asked you where your gold was? Well, you could write a story about that. And another thing is that when you ask questions, you're in good company. So if you've ever been curious about how things work or why something hasn't been invented yet, these are the same kind of questions that great inventors have been asking, philosophers have been asking, and so you're really in good company when you ask questions about how the world works and what you can do to make it better. Read. Raise your hand if you like to read. I love how pretty much almost everybody's hands went up and started to swing. Great, thank you so much. So it looks like a lot of you love to read, including me. I love to read, and it can give you so many great ideas for story writing. So raise your hand and tell me about a book you have read this week.
I like to read Goosebumps books.
You like to read Goosebumps books? Oh wow, I probably couldn't read those without getting nightmares of some sort. I bet they're pretty scary, right? So how could you get an idea for your own story from reading the Goosebumps books?
There's a giant shark that's loose.
There's a giant shark that's loose, maybe? So is that something from one of the Goosebumps books?
Yeah.
So you might think, well, how do the Goosebumps books work? Maybe something happens, like a giant shark gets loose, and so you can think, what is my own idea for something like that happening? Maybe a giant squid gets loose. So you could kind of mix it up a little bit. Although I know that does not sound half as scary. I mean, a giant squid gets loose, but giant squid I think are even bigger than giant sharks. So reading can really give you lots of ideas. Who else would like to tell me about a book that they've read and an idea you might be inspired to get from it? Okay, and how could you get an idea for your own story from that? I'm sorry? Write about vampires? Yeah, that seems like a logical choice. So, reading books, you can think, who are the main characters? What are they like? What is the plot like? And you can think about that and then, do I want to create a similar plot, or do I want to create maybe similar characters? Now remember, you don't want to copy exactly what the books have. Try to mix things up a little bit and think, from reading, what are some things I really like about this book? What are some of my favorite things about this book? Maybe it's the fact that you have to keep on turning every page. Or maybe it's a character that you really, really like. So think about what is my favorite part of this book and see how you can do something similar in your own story. So reading is a great way to get ideas for writing. Travel. Raise your hand if you went anywhere during winter break.
No, not winter, summer.
Oh, yeah, I I'm sorry, summer break, sorry.
Then yes.
I see a lot of raised hands. So, some of you might have gone on vacation during the summer. Would you like to tell me about that vacation?
I went to Tundra Lodge.
You went to, I'm sorry?
Tundra Lodge. It's a water park.
Oh, you went to a water park. It sounds very fun. So the cool thing about writing Inspired by Travels is that when you're reading stories, then the one thing that most stories have is something called suspense. It's what keeps you turning those pages. It means that you don't quite know what's going to happen next. And when you go traveling, when you go on vacation, then the same thing is true. You don't know what's going to happen next. So you can create pretty suspenseful stories based on your travel experiences. So raise your hand if you ever had something kind of embarrassing, or maybe something went off the plan, something that you guys didn't exactly expect that would happen during your vacation. Raise your hand sign like that happened. And who would like to tell me about it?
Oh, my dad ran out of gas, so we had to walk.
Oh my goodness, your dad ran out of gas and you have to walk. That is really probably the most incredible. Yeah, in fact, actually, my family went on a road trip during summer, and I was thinking, because we were driving on this winding highway and we were like the only car on it, and I was thinking, man, if we ran out of gas, this is going to be very hard to walk on. So I'm glad that didn't happen. Now, the cool thing is that you don't just have to remember that because of the stories that you tell out loud or the memory. You can actually write that down or construct a story based on it. So you can describe how it felt to walk, and maybe whether you got some kind of sickening sensation when you realized that you ran out of gas. So that would be something interesting to write about. Let's get one more story about something that went unplanned, an unplanned thing that happened on your vacation.
My dad threw up.
Okay. Your dad threw up. So from running out of gas to throwing up, it seems like the dads have to do something with everything. So yeah, things like that. It might seem gross, or it might seem not great to walk all the way, but you can turn those into really fun stories. Watch. Now, this one might come as kind of a surprise. How could watching TV give you ideas? But it doesn't have to be just TV. It can be in newspapers. It can be on the radio. Can anyone guess what I'm talking about? Here's the hint. It's on TV, it's in newspapers, it's on the radio. What is the one thing I'm talking about?
News?
The news! Very good! The news can give you lots of ideas for writing. Raise your hand and tell me about something you've heard on the news recently.
We had a fire, a building burned down in our community.
Oh my goodness, I'm very sorry about that. So a building burned down in your community, that would be, so maybe when buildings burn down, you heard that on the news. And what are some other things you heard about on the news?
Man crusher was pretty bad.
We had another building burned down. Anybody else?
Are you going through a dry spell or something?
We're not quite sure. Nice and loud. Earthquake in Haiti.
Yeah. Great. So a lot of things seem to be happening on the news, from buildings burning down in your community to international events like the earthquake in Haiti. So you can think of stories inspired by this. So for instance, if you had these two buildings burn down in your community, you could maybe write a story about a city where it seems like where there's a building burning down every day, and nobody knows either who is burning them down or why it's happening. So that might be a fun one, kind of a detective mystery novel. That would be a fun one to do. So that might be something to think about. And then with the earthquake in Haiti, you could maybe write kind of almost like a journal style point of view from somebody who had been in the earthquake. That would be a good one to kind of think about how it would feel to be in that. So there are lots of ideas you could get from the news. Oops. Learn. Raise your hand and tell me about something you've learned today.
You know? Got it?
I'm sorry?
Learn about facts.
You learn about facts? Okay, can you get a little more specific? And what's something you've learned in history class, Aaron? What's something you've learned about history recently?
James Borden.
So what have you learned about him? I'm sorry?
That he was in the Revolutionary War.
Okay, that he was in the Revolutionary War. Very good. So how could you think of a story from what you learned?
You could write about a person that was on it, they would tell about it, and it's bad.
I'm sorry?
You could tell about a person that was on the Revolutionary War, and you could tell about his adventure.
Very good. You could write about the adventures of somebody in the Revolutionary War. That would be a great idea for a story. So when you're learning about people who are in wars or people who are involved in natural disasters or anybody, then it's a really good idea to think, what would it feel like to be in their shoes? What would it feel like to write from their point of view? And there's another great thing that you can do to come up with ideas for a story. Maybe, let's say you were writing about a treehouse, and maybe you're writing from the point of view of the person who built a treehouse. But you might also want to think from the point of view of a bird who goes to the treehouse to sleep at night. Or you could think from the point of view of the tree who has to hold up the heavy treehouse, and think what each of those people thinks as well. So looking at something from different angles can be a great way of getting ideas for writing. Form opinion. Although you probably shouldn't be quite so hasty to form opinion as this girl is about the fish on her plate, but you can still form opinion about topics that really matter to you. So what are some of the things you have formed an opinion on before? What are some topics that really matter to you that you have taken a position on, that you have said, I like this or I don't like this? Or
Football.
football? Okay, so how did you form opinion about football?
He didn't like it, but then he started to play more, and then he liked it.
Okay, so you can talk about how your opinions change. Maybe you started out liking something, then you played it, or sorry, you started out disliking something, you maybe played it more, and then you liked it, which is a good thing to write a story about, because in stories, characters and characters' opinions usually change throughout the book. So that might be a good idea for a story. Now, let's get one more idea, one more opinion on something.
School.
School. And what is your opinion on school?
She doesn't really like it.
Now, we backed it up with some reasons, right? So when you think about an opinion, you have to think, why do I think this? Is it because of an experience I've had? Is it because of a certain reason? And so you could maybe write a story about somebody who doesn't like school, and maybe that character also changes their opinion over time. But it's up to you. So you could form an opinion on everything from sports to school to the things you see on the news, and write stories about the things that you form an opinion on. And you could even write about forming your opinion on food. Tell. Once you have an idea for a story, you can tell it to a friend, to a neighbor. You can tell it to pretty much anybody as long as they want to listen, and see what they think of it, and maybe make some changes based on what they think. But after all of that, it is time to write. And that is what we are going to do right now. We are going to write a story together based on one of those what-if ideas that we came up with earlier. So I'm going to go look at the what-if ideas, and we're going to vote on which one to write about. Okay, so here we go. What if a leprechaun came by you and asked where your gold was? What if the alpacas got loose? So what happened if a frog ate you? Now, raise your hand if you think we should write about what if a leprechaun came by you and asked you where your gold was. Raise your hand if you think we should write a story about the leprechaun. Raise your hand if you think we should write a story about the alpacas getting loose. Raise your hand if you think we should write about what would happen if a frog ate you. Oh, wow, I am seeing a really overwhelming hand count in favor of frog eating. So, let's take a look at the Word document. I'm going to make the font a little bigger. And we are going to write a little short story called, 365 Days in a Frog's Stomach. How about that? So we have our title. Now, what about characters? Who do you think should be the characters involved? So first we need a frog, right? What should the frog's name be?
George.
George! Okay. George the frog. George the frog. And what are some things that make him special? What are some things that are unique to him?
He likes swimming.
He likes swimming. Okay, he likes swimming. And what does he look like? What does George the Frog look like?
He has yellow spots.
He has yellow what?
Spots.
Thighs?
Yellow spots.
Oh, yellow spots.
Spots.
Okay, yellow spots. He has yellow spots all over. It sounds almost as though he had some bad case of like frog pots, maybe. He has yellow spots all over. And okay, so that's good. Now, what about the person who gets swallowed?
Swallowed a prince?
He swallowed a prince. Okay, Prince who? What is the prince's name?
He does not swallow me.
Charles?
Prince Charles. Okay, sounds great. Prince Charles. And what is Prince Charles like as a person?
What does he like?
Video games.
He likes video games.
Okay, he likes video games. And what else about Prince Charles? If he was the person next door, would you want to be his friend? Would you kind of be his enemy? Is he friendly? Is he not friendly?
He's chubby.
He's chubby. Okay. He's chubby. And let's see, is he nice or not nice?
He's mean.
Okay, and he's mean. So that maybe explains how he got into the frog stomach in the first place. So, Prince Charles had gone outside with a bad temper. Or maybe it was a fateful February day when Prince Charles went outside in bad temper. His mother had told him to go out to stop playing his favorite video game, Chicken Shoot. And no, that's not a real video game as far as I know, I just made it up. Oh, it is? Really? Oh! It is. Okay. That is so funny. I thought is it really like shooting chickens?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that is so funny. Oh wow, I didn't know that. I bet, okay, in that case, I bet I must have heard it somewhere and picked it up then. Okay, great. Told him to stop playing his favorite video game, Chicken Shoot, which Charles liked to play 12 hours every day.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot. That's a lot for shooting chickens, I think. Go outside, or else your eyes, I keep on making typos, sorry. Your eyes will get rotted, said his mother.
Oh, it'll be good.
Or his mother, what is his mother's name?
Petunia. Megan. Flower.
Fox.
Queen Box? Was that what I heard?
He said fox.
Oh, Queen Fox. He gave him a shove out the door and slammed it behind him. Prince Charles landed on the ground, landed on his bottom on the hard concrete, wait, no, actually you don't really, maybe on the hard asphalt